Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the One Soccer Nation podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Rae. Today, I'm joined by someone who has lived the game at the highest level and is now shaping it from a completely different seat at the table. Kelyn Rowe is a former MLS professional with over a decade in the league, a current broadcaster with Seattle Sounders FC, and now a commercial lines producer at USI Insurance, where he works closely with youth organizations and professional clubs across the sport. In this episode, we're going to talk about the beautiful game, the realities of transitioning out of a playing career, and what players, clubs, and the industry need to understand about life after the final whistle. Kellen, to dive in, how did you get involved into the beautiful game?
I mean, you have to, I think everyone talks about it, like, right, as a kid. I had an older sister who played. My mother played. My father tried as best as he could. But I was always around the game. You know, my parents joked that I tripped over a soccer ball the first time I took my first steps. So it was always ingrained in our culture and our family. And I think I just kind of grew with it.
Amazing. When you say you grew with that, can you just paint a picture of, growing up playing football for you, what that looked like?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Washington State. Grew up in like the system where you're like playing like your local team. So I'm from Federal Way, just about 30 minutes south of Seattle, and played for my local team. You know, my parents were your coach to start off, and then you kind of grow into getting a better coach. I had some good coaches along the way. I ended up going into what was the first academy system as the U.S. tried to create a more competitive group. I think they now call it ECNL, and so it was that first system of, okay, let's put these two teams together, 16 to 18s and 14s to 16s, and get them to play teams all across and have showcases and tournaments. And so I was able to play in that, get recognized, go to UCLA, which was great. And like I said, I just kept growing with the game, going from youth to college and then going on to the pros and even on to the national team. So I just continued to grow with what the game kind of gave me.
Amazing. I mean, the game's in a super exciting stage of growth.
Yeah.
MLS has been around for 30 years. Next year, we got the big one, the 2026 World Cup, hosted by Canada, US, Mexico. A quick fun one. What are your thoughts on that before we dive into some of the questions?
I think it's cool, right? It's going to be unprecedented because it's in 3 different countries. I think that's incredible. I think you're going to see the differences of the world coming into North America and seeing, what we think are great fans, right? We in the US, we're like, okay, football, baseball, we have basketball, even, but we have all these different sports that we have. When I tell people about the World Cup, I always say, like, think of each day of that month or month and a half, whatever it may be. Each day is a Super Bowl. That's like one day, not one game, one day. Doesn't have to be a game in there, but the city is going to be packed. There's going to be liveliness. The bars are going to be packed. The tourist areas are going to be packed. I think it's just such a cool cultural invitation for the world to come in and see what North America is like.
Agreed. I think it's going to be exciting to see, close friends that you may have, friends that I have that are super like NFL guys, MLB, NBA, turn into soccer guys.
We're gonna get so many questions. I know it, because like, wait, why did you do that? I thought that, and you're like, no, it's play by play. It's not cut and dry. Like it's, I think it's so fun watching people grow into fans. I think you've seen it a little bit with like basketball player Kevin Durant buying into a team, James Harden buying into a team, Patrick Mahomes buying into a women's team. I mean, I think you see it from different sports, realizing that soccer is the world's game and it's growing. But like you said, I think our buddies who, my Joe Schmo buddy neighbor over here is going to be super excited. And I feel like it's going to, like I said, the cultural togetherness is going to be great.
Just to drop another superstar, Russell Westbrook investing into OKC, launching a USL championship and a huge mixed use development project there. With saying that, when you strip away contracts, minutes, and team logos, what did the game actually teach you that still shows up in your life today?
There's a lot of, I think what they call soft skills in like the business world, and I tell these to players when they come out of the game a lot when they go through a transition. But it's the discipline, your willingness to work hard and to kind of fight through adversity, that discipline to continue to go. I think competitiveness, having a will or a way, a goal at the end of whatever it may be, even if it's the simplest of things. Michael Jordan was the best at doing this. He created his own goal, right? He created the own competitiveness to go through to things. For me personally, I think it goes back to what my father and my mother used to say to me when I was 10, and it kind of grew as I became pro. I used to get texts from my dad before every game. It was 3 things. It was have fun, Most importantly, you just go have fun. The whole point of this is it's a game. And so even in life and in business, you got to enjoy some piece of it. Be creative. So don't be like everyone else. If you try and move and it doesn't work, well, try it again. Right? Don't be just the robot that's going through the game. And then don't let anyone work harder than you. And that was one of the biggest things that you always going to learn through, competitiveness, obviously, and through sport, but through life as well. If you work harder than the guy next to you, and most likely you're going to kind of go further. And so those three things together taught me that at a young age, but I carry on through my life.
That's amazing support from your dad. Amazing. Um, you played at the highest level, MLS. A lot of players dream of getting to that level. With saying that, there's also a transition period. Was there a specific moment during your career when you realized, I'm going to need a plan for life after this? And what triggered that realization?
There's going to be moments, and I think every player will go back and look at it. There's multiple moments throughout your career, and one of them is going to have to be a contract. You see the number on that contract, and you realize for the next few years I'm going to be on that, meaning that I don't have that $1 million contract. It's just not going to happen. Meaning I'm going to have a job to live the life I want to live, support my family the way I want to support my family, and so that's what usually the first recognition. The second one for me is when I knew things were starting to turn in my body, in my mind, on the field, that my time was coming up. There's always the little things on the field of maybe I can't keep up with a young kid anymore. For me, it was I wanted the game to give back to me more than I was giving it. And so I was done sacrificing. And when you're done sacrificing, it's like, well, I'm turning a corner here. To continue the career that I want, I have to sacrifice more actually. And so when I stopped sacrificing the days with people, times with friends, the weekends, maybe that extra glass of wine, right? If you stop sacrificing the little things to be a better player, I think you're starting to turn into, okay, now what else is there?
For sure. I mean, that's a great point in regards to what else is there, because for some players, and if you do like to share, guys that you've been around, it's not an easy transition. What's so like for you, how did you make it a smoother transition for yourself? Because it's not something easy. Like there's other players that like football is my life. This is all I want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So some guys are not thinking I'm going to have to transition after. It's more of a conversation now lately, over the last like 10 years, but before or back 10, 20 years ago, it wasn't like that.
No, it wasn't. And it still kind of isn't, right? It's what we know. We know the game. Like we know soccer, we know football. Like that is it. And when you transition out and you say, hey, we're not going to pay you anymore to play the game. You're going, okay, what else can I do in the game? Right. And so for me, it was a little bit different, and it may seem smooth, but it was a rough start. And it's a rough go. It never ends. The transition never ends. I'll be honest with you, because I always want to stay involved in it somehow. So I keep getting pulled back in many ways. But I think the transition piece is, it's finding what else you can do and what else you want to do. When people talk about transition out of a sport, everyone thinks, oh, go be a coach. Well, not all coaching jobs are available, especially at the professional level. It takes a lot of time, a lot of years, a lot of connections. Go be a pundit. No, well, there's only one or two pundits that are available in that whole thing. And there's, over 100 people retiring every year. So, picking one out of that is not going to be, unless you're very lucky. And which I love talking and I love doing those things. And I actually do some broadcasting on the side, but locally, I never had a chance at that. The Apple TVs, the CBS for the Women's League. I never had a chance for that. And so I had to find another way out. How can I be involved in the game, stay in the game without coaching, pundit, and really, I didn't want to be in the front office either. I wanted to have some sense of if anyone's ever played the sport and then gone into the front office or gone into other places, they realize that the only thing that pays in sport is playing or owning.
Understood. That's a good point. So what part of your identity was the hardest to let go once you weren't the player anymore?
Oh man, I think, and then you said the word right there, right? Identity is one of the hardest things to overcome. For me, right? I was 32 when I retired. So for 30, let's say 30 years, I started walking 32 years old, whatever, 30 years or so. My identity, in which I put a lot of pressure on, was that I was the soccer guy. And now I'm no longer the soccer guy, right? So who is Kellen? who is Kelyn Rowe? I don't, at the time I didn't know. And a lot of players that retire don't know either. And so we actually have a little group chat of like MLS players who retire. And then we have calls and such to talk this over. But I think the two things that leave you, and usually for the better, but the things that you need to kind of push behind and find a way around is your identity, figuring out what that is and leaving the soccer guy behind in some ways, right? In some ways that you're more than just a soccer guy, but also your ego. Your ego takes a huge hit, and I think I've discovered this in this new business where I walk into a room instead of everyone being like, oh, that's a sounder. That's Kelyn Rowe. That's a soccer player. I forget sometimes still, but I have to go introduce myself. Like, hi, I'm Kellen. And that's, putting your ego aside and saying that, hey, they don't know who you are anymore, man. Your name, your face, it's dropped. You have to go introduce yourself and then you can tell your story. And then I get to story tell. And actually it's much better for me.
Amazing. No, I mean, like those are many great points, right? Because not every player's expiration date in the game is different, right? Some guys get a year, right? Because some guys get 2 years, some guys get 15 years, right? It's different for everyone, but um, there are injuries, right? That could happen to anyone at any time, in the beautiful game. So, um, when you get that period of playing in the MLS or wherever you're playing around the world, there's a lot that comes with it. Do you want to speak towards a little bit about, I mean, you spoke towards ego and what came with it and that transition period. But do you also want to just like tap into a little bit of the other things that come with playing at such a high level and that status that comes with it and the pressure a little bit more?
Look, there's in this game and in this career, and you can talk about most professionals' careers this way, but there's a lot of luxury, right? There's a ton of luxury, right? You get doors open to you that normal people wouldn't. You get, in a sense, some gear that normal people wouldn't. You get access to things. It's a lot of ease, I guess you could say, and I think luxury is the right word. However, that luxury comes with a price. We talk about sacrifice a lot, and I think the sacrifice and the pressure is one of the two hardest things that you can have, right? I've missed almost all of my best friends' weddings. I missed the birth of my two nieces. I missed, there's family thing. You don't have a holiday. I play on holidays. I don't get that because you guys are watching it on TV with your families. I'm playing in that game. So you don't get those holidays. And so the sacrifice of that, the ability that, when you are feeling tired and know you have a big game on Saturday, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you're at home. You're not going on date night because, honey, I'm not feeling good this week. I gotta get better. I'm in the Normatec boots. I'm stretching. I'm in a game ready. I'm not putting anything in my body that shouldn't be there. I'll cook you dinner, but we can't go out. Like I can't do that. And the pressure in your mind is, if I mess up on Saturday, I may never play again. Especially if there's competitiveness in that lineup. If you're going, hey, I finally have a chance to play, my whole week is as straight edged as it can be because you don't want to mess that time up. You'll get a certain amount of time. You talk about players who play 1 or 2 years, and then you have players who play 15. And the difference of that is willingness to sacrifice, luck of timing, and having a coach that believes in you, and just being able to perform at a level enough or good enough to continue to keep your name relevant, and in the face of both coaches, fans, and the higher levels.
Absolutely. A quick fun one. You mentioned many great points there. Just a quick fun. The 12th man, right? Like I played in front of like hundreds, but you played in front of thousands, right? Of fans. The 12th man. Is there anything like that outside of the game?
There is nothing like it. And I try to explain it to people when I talk about the World Cup and the different cultures that are going to come in, right? So I've played in some great stadiums. New York Red Bull. In 2014, we played in the final of the Eastern Conference Championship with New England, and we had like 1,000 people in the stands. Right, 1,000 people doesn't sound like a lot, but you could hear them on the other side of the field through their 20, 30,000 fans. We heard our 1,000 fans on the other side of the field. It was incredible. And then when I'm younger, I'm in Guatemala with the under 20 national team, and there was 30,000 fans. We were playing Guatemala in Guatemala City, so 30,000 Guatemalan fans screaming at the top of their lungs. The field was shaking because the stadium was shaking. They had about a 30-foot fence, and when Guatemala scored, there are teenagers, adults climbing on this fence, shaking the fence towards almost touching the ground and coming back up.
Wow.
Having that environment is one of the most culturally passionate, like religion-esque feelings. And you feel it both on the good and the bad. Right, on the good side with the New York Red Bulls, and we were an away team, and we heard our fans, 1,000 fans screaming at us. It's a great little, pick me up. On the Guatemala side, I was terrified. I was 19 years old, and I'm going, where am I? I mean, it's for them, it's pumping them up, right? And to me, I'm going, what is happening? There's 12th man plays a huge, huge role. I played in the CONCACAF Champions League final in 2022, where we won here in Seattle. I had friends that lived around the stadium, and they were just listening. They just opened their window and they could hear and feel, like shaking, feel when we scored. That is insane.
Do you miss it?
Every day. I mean, you can hear it in my voice, right? You can hear I get fired up.
Yeah.
I miss it every day. The things that I miss, obviously, I could still go out and play. I love this quote from Thierry Henry. No one teaches you how to die after playing, because a piece of you dies. Right? There's that competitiveness, that stature, that ability to play at the highest level kind of dies off, right? You stop playing, and you're not going to play at the highest level. I can go kick the ball around, but it's not going to be the same. And so what I miss is the immortal feeling after a win, after a goal, after a hard tackle, after, these little things that just give you this sense of, I am invincible. That's what sport gives you, especially as a player. And especially when 30,000 people are yelling your name or screaming at you after doing something like that, right? There is no better feeling. I'm on top of the freaking world. It's great.
For sure. Well, people always say, you're part of the 1% if you make it as a pro athlete, but it's really, 0.0001, that's not the exact number, but just, it's really hard to make it. And you made it. You're part of that group. And I could just, everything that you're saying, I could visualize it. Cause you've lived it. And like, I get excited just listening to stories, like yours, because honestly, that's amazing that you were able to do that. With saying that, if you could sit down with your 19-year-old's version of yourself today, what uncomfortable truths would you tell him about career longevity and life after soccer? I mean, you've mentioned some points, but if there's anything unique in regards to after soccer, that you haven't touched on, please share.
I think there's a few things. 19-year-old self, like going into the league, I was just a spitfire. I could run around forever. All I wanted to do was score goals, and I enjoyed that piece so much. I would say the sacrifice is more than you think, and if you continue to do it, your career will be great. I would say, or greater, I guess. Yeah, gosh, take every moment in, because you never know when it's your last. I mean, you talk about injuries, you talk about, and even if I knew that, it was a 12-year-long career, throughout my career, you're going, okay, if I do this, then I'll get here. Then I just take every moment in. There's no need to go forward. And then on the other side of, hey, if you want to plan for the future, you can do so. Absolutely. And it's instead of having the connection because you're there because you were told to be there, an appearance, or you're meeting a fan after the game, is make it genuine. Make it genuine. Remember that name. If you see their face, say hi to them if they're in the stands. The bosses that come into the locker room, the sponsorships that come onto the locker room, the people that want to be around you because of your stature, well, see if you want to be around them too. And I think that is, creating a relationship and is not going to take away from your game at all. If anything, it makes you more human. And I think that will prolong your career as well. You're not just a soccer player, you become a human a little more. I think that piece is something that I tell people all the time. And I think I wish I had that at a younger age. I grew into it because I was mentored through some older guys on the teams. But at a younger age, when I was more prevalent in the game, I think I would have been more successful after the career if I would have set myself up for that success with actual genuine relationships and meaningful ones.
Understood. Shifting gears here, seeing the game differently, a perspective shift. As a broadcaster now, how has telling other players' stories changed the way you reflect on your own career?
I love it because it does both things, right? We talk about the ego and things coming into play. And so it's no longer about me, it's about them. And how do I tell their story better? I'm not trying to be there to mentor them. And when they tell their story, look back at mine. I'm trying to don't reminisce. Continue to tell theirs and inflate theirs as much as you can. And celebrate it. That's the coolest thing for me now is, I'm not competing with any of these players anymore. Usually I would say Monday to Thursday, you and I are battling each other. Friday, Saturday, whoever's winning and is on the field for the final 11, great. I'll be your biggest supporter. But from Monday to Thursday, I'm going to battle you every single day because that's my spot. Right. So now I don't have to do that. Now I'm just on the sideline going, hey, good job. I remember talking with Paul Rothrock here in Seattle with the Sounders. Him and I battled a lot when we were playing. It was the older kid, or me being the older kid, him being the younger one, kind of learning, and then, oh crap, he's past me now. It's a hard thing to take on. And now I get to interview him and talk with him and talk about him and just praise him because you get to see it from the other side. You get to take off that player hat and just be a fan again. And I think that piece of it is really great for me.
Yeah. I think that point that you'd mentioned in regards to battling throughout the week in order to get that playing spot, there's only 11 spots to play and get those minutes and bonuses, right? Like that battle is such a unique aspect of the beautiful game in regards to a job perspective that doesn't really exist in most other jobs outside of sport. Which is kind of pretty fun. It keeps you on your toes.
Look, it's one of the hardest things. And I think in sport, and we talk about what does the sport of soccer bring in, or football, what does it bring into the real world? And I think that is piece of it. And I tried to do it when I was playing, speaking at different engagements and saying, okay, if trying to explain soccer to them and the attitude for it. But if I was going to go in and I prepped for a presentation on, let's say, Friday. So Monday to Thursday, I was prepping for a presentation and I was working, right? I did all my research. I made sure to put the slides together. I had my speech out. I had my intentional questions ready for it. And on Friday morning, someone said, hey, by the way, John's going to take that interview or going to take that presentation. We'll get you next week. My job is not to crush John. I have to flip my switch and say, okay, I'll get my time next week. My time now is to support John. He's part of my business, part of my team. It's my job to now do that. How can I continuously ask intentional questions and do the things and support him as much as I can? But on Monday, hell, on Saturday, I'm going to be pushing again. And it's going to be my turn to go through there. And then on Friday, guess what? It's not my decision. It's the coaches. It's my team lead. It's my boss. On Friday morning, if I have it, I'm going to be ready. But it might be Jessica's time. So that's how I kind of went through my weeks continuously, which is a roller coaster of emotions all the time. But it's the way I think is the best for me being a human being, because I can't just be competitive. I have to find a way to be supportive, or else I'm going to be an angry POS. So I need to find a way to support as well.
For sure. I want to stay on track. I was going to ask you, because there's a lot of things with you becoming being an athlete, the mental side of the game. But maybe I'll just save it for a bit later. I want to stay on track here. Now that you've been on both sides of the table, what do players misunderstand most about how clubs actually make decisions?
I think there are multiple ways, right? When you're playing and you're in training sessions and you're playing with these players, you think, all right, well, this player's the best, this player's the best, this player's the best. Obviously, we know where we're gonna go. What you don't see are fan engagement. You don't see our pressure from different clubs, different ownerships, different styles. What you don't see are the different politics that come into play. And what you don't see is every day after training, before training, the coaching staff trying to find the best ways to fit a full team. We think of it as individuals. I am better than that person. However, there's not an I in this 11. If that person, let's say Kareem, is on the wing and he is better, he's playing better with the right back, connecting better with the forward. Well, me being a better player doesn't mean that I'm going to play. If the game calls for it and they need a connection on that side, well, you're going to step in. There are tactical changes that happen purely not just because of talent, which is a lot of times why I think you see players move out into a different environment. So get traded to teams, move into a different team, move into a different league, and all of a sudden succeed. It's because they just fit that system, that player, that coach. The talent level is the same, but it's how they fit in a full team, which is one of the hardest things to put together.
Understood. Switching, actually, before we switch gears again, I just want to ask you, in regards to mental health, how did you stay healthy mentally? Um, because it's important that, obviously playing soccer, you're fit. So physically you're healthy, but mentally, how did you stay mentally healthy, and positive?
I think the game is changing on that front hugely. And it was something that wasn't around when I was playing. If it was kind of hush hush. And I've seen some therapists, like sports therapists, to kind of get you in what they call the zone, right? If you can do something with your eyes closed, kind of thing. Every athlete knows when they're in the zone, and they're like, "Oh my, I cannot do anything wrong." And his shooter's hand is hot. You're like, "How do I get back to that?" And I think that the game now is changing into continuously not having the highest of highs, not having the lowest of lows. If you can stay even keel and obviously go through the emotions, but in the underlying even keel is kind of where it needs to be. And for me, it was the thought process of tomorrow's another day. And I think that mostly in practices. You've had good practices, bad practices. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn today. I couldn't pass anything. My fitness felt off. Tomorrow's a new day. You got to prove yourself again tomorrow. One bad practice is not going to make or break your career. Both make or break, and that has to be understood. It's not going to make or break your career. And so tomorrow's a new day, and that was the biggest thing. My little mantra. Now it didn't always work. It didn't always work, but you found a way. And if things weren't going well, you know the basics. You run hard, you kick hard, you find the easy things, and hopefully you can snap yourself back out.
Definitely. Just a quick one too. Traveling takes a toll on the
Oh,
body. How did you deal with travel?
it takes more than a toll on the body. I remember when COVID hit 2020, we were flying in the same day, flying out that night. So we fly in the
Wow.
morning. Now we were only regional, right? I was in Boston. We were regional. So I was going to Philly a bunch. But like you fly into Philly, New York, whatever it may be, quick flights, but you're still on a flight. You're still, getting swollen in your legs and in your mind. You're tired. You sit in a hotel room for 2 hours and you go play a game. I think it's one of the hardest things, but the travel itself is, we talk about jet lag on business trips, on vacations, on whatever it may be, but you don't talk about it with athletes. But it's incredible because we do it all the time. Like Boston went to Seattle to Portland. I mean, Florida to Vancouver. I mean, probably the furthest you could go in our league, and they had to go perform in a day or 2 days notice. When you say, "Oh, my jet lag hit, and I was really tired for this meeting, so I went to bed." Well, I don't have that choice. I don't. I don't have that ability. I have to be my top performer in a day and a half's time, and so, there's different tricks and things, but hydration is the biggest thing. And I think if you're going to travel a long distance, coaches used to say, "Hey, we're going to the East Coast, or we're going to the West Coast. Stay out of the bars. Tell your wives to have the wine on their own." Like we got to prepare.
Yeah. Um, Switching gears here, your role at USI blends
hmm
sports experience with commercial risk advisory. How do you translate what you learned on the field into helping clubs and organizations identify and prioritize the risks that could impact their operations and growth?
Well, I think I take a team and like a holistic approach to just about everything I do, but especially in this, right? I was never a star player. I was never a star player. I was a role player. I played a role each time, and I was able to get things to match the way they needed to match. If my left back wanted, or if my left midfielder wanted the ball at his feet, or he would go find it. Well, I need him in the proper space, and so I would always find his feet first, and then I would start the play. Always get him the feet, and he basically like saying, "Thank you, I'll stay in my spot now." And so I always know where he's going to be. And so similarly to a team or an organization, a youth club, a youth state club, a professional team, can we find ways to fit in the right pieces to make sure holistically this is a team and a team that is successful, right? You may need as a team that's struggling to score goals. Well, you need a forward. Well, you've had a lot of injuries in the past 5, 10 years in the wintertime. Okay, how do we find what strategy can we work to hit that winter time to make sure that there's less injuries, which means less claims, less money that you get to spend in the next 3 years, really, as those claims continue to grow. So can we take a lot of analytics, very similar to how they do with the GPS and the systems. We take a lot of analytics and find the best way to one, save money, but also save injury, save and different time as well. And how can we find that in a holistic aspect? And for me, it's like basically creating a starting 11.
Understood. Across youth, amateur, and professional soccer, what's the most underappreciated area of risk that clubs consistently overlook until it's too late?
I think on the professional side, because they kind of differ. On the professional side, I would say it's going to be like the media, right? The media rights that you have. You play a song in the stadium, and all of a sudden you're getting sued, and you're going, whoa, whoa, whoa! I thought it was a song that everyone could use. I think those are starting to be the biggest ones that we find on that lower end, right? It's not too much money, but it's on that lower end. Everyone knows that cyber is a huge thing right now. You see all these different hacks, all these different, Azure goes down. If the biggest companies in the world of Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are going down, your small club is probably at risk with all the information that you guys have, thousands of season ticket holders, tens of thousands of season ticket holders, all having their credit card information, all the different information that they have. So protecting that. And on the use side, it's just protecting what's coming next. California is passing a law about AEDs and needing to have those on site and access and people available to use them. And so when California or Florida has some kind of law passed in that area, the whole country kind of follows suit. And so, how can we? It's a lot of money to have AEDs on site and things. And so, how can we broker deals with different cities and different municipalities to make it easier on these youth teams and these youth clubs? But in the end, I think the biggest thing that people miss and what they don't know until they know is the service. I think the service side is huge because I've been through workers' compensation. It takes forever. It just takes forever. And so can you find a way to get the service to be done quicker? And I also come from a hospitality background. So how can I help? How can I help you? Help me help you, right? Can we find the service that sits well? And for us, it's about having an actual team. Again, we come back to the team aspect, but having a team of experts with those services.
Definitely. Many organizations only think about insurance after something goes wrong. How do you help clubs shift from a reactive mindset to a long-term protection and risk strategy that actually supports growth?
I think the biggest thing is having the conversations. When you talk about building relationships, and it should be relationship. If I know it's insurance, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's something that you need to have, and it's something that you can grow with and continuously, and you're going to use continuously, especially at the highest level. And so for me, it's having that conversation, hey, what are your goals? Okay, if you hit that, what is your next goal? And I think moving forward and thinking forward is something that we have to do. So you get to go run your business and we'll make sure that you're covered. And I think one of the best things that we could do is say, hey, by the way, this happened. I don't know what happened. This building burned down. This kid was hurt doing this. And for us to say, hey, don't worry about it, you're covered. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we have to have that foresight. That way you don't have to have it as well. But having those conversations from the get-go, or like, hey, we're going to actually open this new facility. Okay, tell me all about it because we want to make sure you're covered on that as well. And so I think the conversation piece, the relationship piece is huge when it comes to growth, whether it be youth, whether it be a normal business, or especially a professional club who are now looking at, expansions and stadiums and training facilities as the USL is growing.
I think every week I see a new post going out, new club launcher on a USL level, and I mean, just overall the growth in U.S. soccer is amazing. I mean, it's such a big market.
It's huge. I think not even at the professional level. There's youth clubs that are growing too. I mean, there's academies that are coming into play. I think the growth in U.S. soccer, and I can't wait to see it after the World Cup. But the growth of U.S. soccer is, I don't even think it's touched the surface yet. And I think we're going to continue to go and go and go. And sky's the limit, as they say.
Definitely. USI takes a consultative, analytics driven approach to risk management. Can you walk us through an example of how that approach has created real value for a soccer organization you've worked with?
Absolutely. I think using experience, right? We have a whole team. And so using experience to one, get the analytics, but also the experience of insurance providers who have seen the worst of the worst. But for an example, I think we talked about the analytics, and so when I said that we had this many injuries in the second week of preseason or in the winter time, taking those analytics and saying, okay, how can we change what the atmosphere is, what the different things are to create the risk environment to basically take that risk away from you and find a way to do that. And so we did that with a youth club and kind of broke down their analytics, and they ended up changing like an hour. All they did was like change an hour from their time, from from later in the day to a little bit earlier in the day, and we saw their claims just drop because the kids weren't out as late. They were closer to school than straight to practice. There was little things, whether the weather was a little bit warmer, and the later practices weren't a little bit colder. I think whatever it was, we took those analytics, provided them. Their claims went down, meaning that they didn't have as much money to spend over the next 3 years, because they didn't have as many claims. And I think that is a big advantage. And then we talked about thinking about the future. It's bringing in the risk or taking away the risk before it comes into light. We talked about those AEDs, and we ended up brokering with the city of the state of California, but a lot of cities to have those AEDs in sight. So if the youth clubs aren't and the parents aren't paying extra money, it's very little extra rather than paying for the whole thing.
Definitely. Anything and everything can help. Um, with saying that, how can individuals get in contact with you and reach out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm available on all things social media. Well, most things social media. I'm terrible at it, but I'm there. We connected on LinkedIn. I love using LinkedIn to connect, especially on the business side. If you see me at an event, if you see me at a game, I am a very personable person. I love people. Please come introduce yourself. I'll hopefully have a card on hand. Please bring me your card. But I think for me, even on Instagram, I'll message you back. Um, but I think if you send me an email, it's the easiest thing in the world, and I would love to have a conversation. Soccer or insurance or life.
I'll make sure to drop Kellen's Instagram, LinkedIn, and email down in the description for you guys to have access to and contact Kellen. With saying that, I want to come back to the World Cup. Everyone talks about the World Cup as a moment, but where do you think the real long-term opportunity lies after the final whistle blows in 2026?
I've had this conversation with the committee out here in Seattle, working with the Seattle World Cup committee, and I think the answers that they have are a little bit different because they're on the business side. But I really enjoy that piece, right? I think if you take it from a soccer world, I think you're going to see the youth grow into seeing their heroes. I think you see all of a sudden you take a kid to a game and you're going, I love soccer, because they see the atmosphere, they see the games, they see the quality of players at the highest of levels. It just grows the love for the sport, I think, in both the youths and hugely in the youth side. And so we have more interest in soccer as well. But I think for the fan piece, American fans get to see and I always kind of make fun of them. I say what real fans are. The passionate, the religion, the way that different cultures come together and fight and like really, really want, passion's the best word for it, but I love it. And then on the business side, if you're a small business, and I've told this in front of many people, small business, big business, doesn't matter. How do you get these people who are traveling for different countries, different continents to come back to your city? I think that is going to be the huge thing. When you have all these different environments and make them feel at home, you now know which teams are coming to your place. Find a way to get them to come back, because if they come back, that is huge for your economy. That is huge for your city. You continuously have these tourists coming in to love more of your city, watch it grow, help it grow by spending money and time and effort into growing what they fell in love with at the World Cup.
Absolutely. Um, a quick fun one. How far do you think the US is going to go?
I think it's going to depend on our draw after the group. I imagine we better get out of our group. But I don't think we have all the tenacity we need to get out of I don't think we get past the quarters if we get there.
Yeah. Who do you think, who do you want to see in the finals?
I'd love to see Spain. I really would. I would love to see Spain. I think they're an incredible team. I think they're a youthful team, which I really enjoy. And then I've got an absolute ringer, but I want to see Norway. I want to see Holland in the final.
I mean, he's a goal scoring machine.
And you never know in these tournaments. You can all of a sudden, was it Iceland that made it super far? Is either in Euros or in the World Cup. They made it super far, and you could see, the fans, obviously the Viking clap that kind of came through to that. But they had tenacity. They worked really hard. It's really hard to score on them, and so they'd catch you on a counter. When you got a guy like Erling Haaland, it's like, okay, we catch him on a counter. We're going to score one. Okay, now defend for our lives.
I think back in 2022 was was Morocco too. Morocco was a big one that made it
Yeah.
far. And so,
Yeah. Which all levels, Morocco has been the killer for youth U.S. national teams. The
wow,
past, this whole year, I think we got beat 3 times or 4 times on
wow,
the youth level at different World Cups and different games by Morocco. So
wow.
Morocco is now the new Ghana. They're killing our national teams.
Interesting. I want to come back to a point that you mentioned, like, the youth falling in love with the beautiful game, right? But also
Mm-hmm.
from a city level, I recently had Justin Papadakis on, the deputy
Mm-hmm.
CEO of USL, and he was sharing that, more of the city officials are more soccer individuals now, right? Before it was, it was baseball and other sports, but now there's more that are becoming soccer. The new city officials that are coming in and taking over um, those roles, which is exciting to hear, because there's more motivation and understanding for the game and wanting to bring it to their market, in markets that don't have professional soccer or any sports at all, any professional sports, which is an exciting thing. And I think the World Cup next year, which is a huge hot topic, is going to blow a lot of the things out of the water, I think.
Well, I think USL is doing it correctly, and the way that you talk about every new team coming in every week, I find something. But every week, I also see someone building a stadium, and I think that's great, right? Having a soccer-specific stadium, but what they're doing, and I think they're doing it super well. They're not just building a stadium; they're building a small community. And so, when you do come to a game, you have a place to eat, you have a place to stay, you have a place to shop, you have a place to walk around. I mean, that piece of soccer, the community piece, is what it's meant for. I think, in my mind, I love the community of soccer and how it brings people together. But if you're just going to go to a stadium park and walk into a stadium, that's no community. Meet up beforehand, meet up afterwards, take your family for a walk. I think that piece that the USL is doing a really good job of is creating the culture and the community, small community. You're not building a full city, but you're building a small community for people to linger and really communicate with each other. I think that has been huge with all the new stadiums that are coming out in the USL.
Agreed. As soccer organizations become more complex businesses with stadium projects, larger staffs, and global exposure, how does USI help future-proof clubs against risks they may not even be thinking about yet?
We talk about those relationships and kind of thinking beyond, right? And so as you continue to grow, knowing that when you do have that stadium, are you building the retail shop with the apartments above? Are you building, is there going to be a pool there? Are you building the hotel? Are you building an ice rink when the wintertime hits and you're in Minnesota, and so people can do the ice rink stuff while they're going to go watch a game on the indoor field? It's it's almost using our little crystal ball to predict what is going to happen over the next 5-10 years. And thankfully, we have a trail of analytics of, okay, for the last 10 years, every 2 years something has changed, and with that change comes these risks, and these risks. And so using those analytics to kind of push things forward, but also our job as brokers in this game is to advocate for our client. That client is these teams. And so how do we go to the carriers and say, hey, because they've done this before at this stadium, they learned from this mistake that they did at the other stadium, they've done their due diligence. Let's find a way to meet in the middle here on pricing, to find a way to help them grow forward. And then we'll revisit this in 3-4 years, and we'll see how good they've been. If they've been good, then we stay on. If they've had some claims, we can talk about it and then renegotiate as well. And so my whole job is to, I tell people that I get paid to save you money. And that's my whole goal, is to go negotiate and on your behalf. And as long as we're on the same page about the risk transfers that we're doing, and we're talking about the future, and we can hit that future before it happens, or I can use my crystal ball and get us what we need.
That's a great line. I get paid to save you money. I like that line. That's a really good one.
It's true though.
Yeah, cool. I like it.
I talked with a guy this recently, and he was paying a lot of money, and I was like, dude, I'm going to triple your coverage, and you're going to save money. He's like, how did you do that? I was like, it's my job. That's it. It's my job.
If MLS or the players union called you tomorrow and asked you to help design a real post-career pathway, what would you insist must be included and why?
I think it would be research, time, and funding. You get research from different guys that have done it, whether it's 20 years ago, 10 years ago, last year. You get the differences of the league. Again, we talk about the analytics, right? You get the differences of guys who played when the league first started. They were making $0, and so it's different. But you've got guys who are now playing, making $400K a year. Well, their transition is going to be different than the guy who's got, 3 kids and came out at 25 years old. So there's just so many differences. I need to have the analytics and things of that sort to figure out each guy. The funding is just to have the ability to make sure that people are safe, in all honesty, just safe. Because you went from, again, $400K a year to zero. You may have 3 kids, you may not have 3 kids, but you may have spent it a lot, because, as you know, athletes love to spend our money. We have no idea if they were financially responsible or not. So how can we help them? There is no pension plan. There is no pension. You go from what you're making to zero. Your insurance is gone in 2 years, or sorry, 2 months. 2 months. And so your personal insurance is gone. You can pay for it, but it's like $700 a month. And so it's like, okay, how can we find ways to fund where these guys can now live for, let's say, 6 months to figure it out? Because that's the biggest thing, is you got to be able to figure it out. And then I need time. I need time from ex-player. I need time from the current players that are retiring. And I need time because it's not going to happen overnight.
Kellen, what are your thoughts on the 2026 FIFA World Cup being hosted by Canada, US, and Mexico for the first time, with 3 different countries hosting it?
I mean, I think we kind of set the new standard, right? I think having ability to go through 3 different countries, not only from a team aspect and players get to go from different countries, but fans as well. I know that there are different people that are coming into play are going to go to Vancouver, and then they're also going to come to Seattle, and then they're going to go down to LA to watch these different games. And so obviously the US is quite a big country. Going from 3 different countries, I think you open the world up, and that's what the World Cup does. And the World Cup brings in cultures and allows you to see more. Now you're spreading that across 3 different countries. I think that's huge in just a world acceptance way. And we're hoping that this can just, fill in those cracks that keep cracking throughout the world, and it keeps breaking us apart. Can these cultures and this game bring in that much more love and respect and care to the world? And I think you're doing that over 3 countries. You're just adding the amount of love you can bring.
Yeah. Love. I mean, speaking of love, President Trump received the Peace Award down in Washington, D.C. By FIFA, the first of its kind. And I'm not really into politics, but there is a lot of politics going on for the World Cup from what I've seen on the TV. But no, it's intense. I mean, from my perspective, and I think it's nice to see Canada, Mexico, and US collaborating in that partnership there to bring, the best sport in the game, the beautiful game, to our countries. The economic impact that it's going to have is going to be massive, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions. With saying that, from like a fan perspective, like the masses, some people are scared to come travel to the US. What are your thoughts on that, and like ICE and stuff like that? I mean, if you want to, just touch on it.
Look, I think the first part, I think you just see how much politics there is in everything, right?
Yeah.
Every person, and I do think this, whether your politics aside, whether it's the mailman, the hierarchy of the world, whether it's someone who's giving you mail, giving you coffee, your boss's boss, everyone needs to have their ego stroked a little. If you want your mail out to go first, you're going to be very kind to that mail person, aren't you? You're going to make sure that you say hello. You're going to make sure that everything is on time. You want your coffee order to be correct, but you're going to continue to order it multiple times and make sure you're respectful in every way. Every once in a while, everyone needs an ego stroke to get things done. And I think you see that in the hierarchy of the world, but you can bring it down even to the lowest of things. Hell, my younger sister, if I need her to do something, I'm making sure I do something for her first, because I need whatever is over there. So it happens all around the world. It happens at the highest level of the world. Just know that it's there's politics and everything. And then when you come and you talk about the safety, like I'm not going to sit here and say your safety is great in the US and you're going to be okay. I sure hope so. I'm on the side that every religion, every culture, every set of food, drink, whatever you have, hopefully all love. But I know the passion will be there as well. And so there'll be some, knocking heads, but bring it, embrace it, live it. And then hopefully you take a little bit of our culture back with you. And that's the biggest thing for me is, we talk about sharing is caring, right? We teach it as kids. Well, sharing is caring in this scenario. Share your culture with us in the safest of manners, but share your culture with us and allow us to share ours with you. And hopefully it continues to grow and blossom. And it's not the only trip you're willing to take.
Um, and just to go back to the pitch, um, 48 teams, um, more teams, more games. Uh, who are you going to be following? What countries, what games are you looking most forward to watching?
So I'm going to be biased in the first one because obviously US, but there's a specific game in Seattle. It's USA versus Seattle. Or sorry, USA versus Seattle. USA versus Australia. I'm a fair big drinker, and I love my Australian friends because they are also big drinkers. But I've got a few Australian buddies who have already talked a lot of crap to me. They're going to take the flight out. They're going to come into Seattle. A few of them not being soccer guys, and so it makes it even more fun for me. We talk about bringing those guys into the culture. But a guy I played with, Brad Smith, he's going to come back hopefully and play, or not play, but watch the game with us as a guy who played in Seattle and is Australian and played on the Australian national team. So you have these different kind of butting heads, and so that game especially is one that I'm going to follow and be at hopefully, if I can ever find a ticket. But I think the classic ones that you want to follow are the Spain, the France, the things of that sort. But I want to follow Norway. Norway is my dark horse, and the one I think is going to be most exciting, and kind of that one that is going to have a lot of bandwagon fans as they grow through the tournament. And I want to follow that. I like being involved. We talk about getting involved in the culture. Well, I want to get involved in that.
Yeah. I mean, we love the banter. I miss the banter, man. The locker room, just on the pitch, all types of different banter. It is amazing.
I got a call right when he got picked. I got a call from my buddy who lives in Boston. He's an Australian guy, and he had his Australian buddy there, and they both were on the call with me. And I'm sitting, and they're just yelling at me, just yelling nonsense in their spear, just sitting there like, all right, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, super fun. Kellen, this has been an incredible, insightful conversation that we could talk about soccer forever. There's that saying, people living vicariously through other people. Like I could just visualize just, learning and hearing your experiences. Like I love talking about the beautiful game. And, you've went to the highest level. You played at the highest level in the US, the MLS. But again, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for being open about the realities of your career, the transition out of the game, which is extremely hard after some, and the work you're doing now to support clubs and players in a different way. I truly appreciate, because it's not something easy. For everyone listening, if you're a player thinking about life after soccer, or an operator trying to build something sustainable off the field, there are powerful lessons in this episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to the One Soccer Nation podcast and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, let's keep growing the beautiful game. Kellen, thank you so much.